A very good morning to you all. Welcome to Sunrise today. I'm Chamberlain. So,
indeed, it's the start of another week. We hope it will be a beautiful and productive one for you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Today,
where is he? Okay.
What happened to that?
I'm wondering because I heard his voice.
I heard today.
Okay. And ceased.
Yes.
Okay,
so
well,
what happened to the date?
Well, I thought he was trying to say today is October 23rd.
No, don't just go there.
Indeed. This is going to be a huge one.
Just 1 second, Chamberlain.
Okay.
Just 1 second. You cannot take my voice. Today is October 23. Good morning and welcome. It's a Monday morning. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Yeah. So, of course, there'll be a lot of focus in the courts this morning because the Supreme Court is going to begin hearing the appeal for the presidential election petition court. Remember all of that drama that was handed down the courts. So, yes, the parties, the APC, PDP, APN, Labour Party, they'll all be supporters who keep an eye and ear as well on what is going on there. So, of course, there'll be mixed feelings, reactions, expectations, concerning what people expect today. So, hopefully, all of those will bring to you as much as we can, and then also get to hear from lawyers. Because, I mean, sometimes you just wonder, perception, reality for lots of people, what they think about the judiciary, how it works, but I guess it is what we will hope to bring to you this morning. But yeah, we're also keeping tabs on, remember those core members that were kidnapped some time ago? How there was a lot of apprehension and lots of people wondering. Of course, it will be a significant one for the youth service, how they handled all of this one. But they put up a release now. One person has been released. And they did say they're putting heads together see how all of that can happen. So let me see if I can just fetch that for you and read it out here this morning in terms of the release from the communication department about an update. They call it update on kidnapped prospective core members. One just released from captivity. So the management of the core conveying to the general public that one person has been released. Those core members abducted in Zamfara State on Friday, 20th October 2023. And that was at about 12:30 p.m. out of the 7 in captivity and the bus driver. So don't forget that. But they went on to say this scheme is confident that they'll get all of the others out. So it raises a lot of attention concerning security and in Zamfara.
1/7. That's what we're getting to hear now.
1/7.
1/7 is not exactly a pass mark, but it does give a ray of hope that indeed all the other 6 are still alive, and we should do everything in our power to get them out of captivity. I know that the NYC used to have a policy where if, really terrible incidents like this happened in a state, they don't send coppers there anymore. This is the kind of thing that discourages people from sending their children to the service and continues to, give Philip to the call from some quarters that the NYC be scrapped. But the fact that something like this happened is not enough. It's not enough to scrap an entire scheme when you look at it on the whole in terms of the benefits. So the NYC should continue to work assiduously with security agencies to see how quickly they can get out the remaining 6 who are still in captivity. As we said, 1/7, or shall we say 2/8, if you're to look at the fact that we're talking about lives and the life of the driver too is important. Yeah. So 2/8 out of 2 out of 8 is, as I said, provides a ray of hope, but it's not sufficient to say, oh, they've done enough. Haven't done enough. Please double down. We appreciate the communication, and we're passing same to many Nigerians, but they need to double up, see how it is that they can get many more of these youth copper out of captivity? Ayo.
Well, one word stands out for me in this release, Chamberlain and Malkwe. It's the word release. Secure the release. Sounds a lot like a release and not a rescue. So exactly what is it? Is it sufficient for us to say, okay, they have been released voluntarily by the captors? Or what exactly? Well, maybe the means is not as important as the end, but a good number of people might be asking a question. A second thing that comes to me, lady and gentlemen, is that we're talking about young people now, abducted, definitely scandalized. There is that popular saying which I remember in that interview you had with Mr. Fashola, Malkwe, yourself, and Chamberlain during the October 1st broadcast. He said that he recalls that there is a common parlance that may Nigeria not happen to you. And he said he wants Nigeria to happen to him. I'm not sure how confident the young people who are in captivity right now will feel about that. Is this Nigeria happening to them, or just some non-state actors giving Nigeria a bad name in their lives and in their hearts? That's another challenge that we need to look at. Gladly, the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation is doing something about reinstilling confidence in the country. Let's just hope that this also, spills into the lives of those who have been scandalized as these young men. They are not the only ones. We have had secondary school students who have been so scandalized. And now, coppers, 6 of them or 7 of them, as you have said, Chairman Malkwe, okay, 6 of them, who are still right now in captivity. What's going on with them? How will they feel about their nation that they just wanted to go serve according to the law? And is there a plan to ensure that this doesn't happen again, ever again? Questions, Chamberlain and Malkwe.
Yeah, and then it was over the weekend as well, that story that made in Benue State, as a matter of fact, the robbery where 4 banks were attacked. The IGP has put up a statement about all of those, saying, well, yes, they saw that. I think they said that about 2 suspects were dead during the chase at that point in time. But I think perhaps we'll get word from the police in terms of response time is always huge. And this seems to happen almost time and again. And so one wonders, do they actually pay attention to response time? Is it an issue for them? Because year on year, time and again, it is always a challenge when those kind of things happen. And then the question of emergency, how we respond in those kind of cases, always an issue here. So how could 4 banks be hit? And 1, 2, 3, 4. You can imagine what that does. But we'll see, because it wasn't exactly pleasant. And so you then wonder, how do we approach this kind of thing? What measures do we have in place? Because, look, yes, everybody's feeling the pinch economy. So naturally, you would have thought that security agencies will know that tendencies for people to take laws into their hands will heighten, it will arise. So you would have thought they put in measures to ensure that this kind of things happen. And I think, guys, I don't know if you remember, Ayo particular as well, when during COVID, when lots of people were home, we had the former police spokesperson here who did tell us, look, certain things are bound to rise as a result of people staying in their homes. And so they also putting measures in place to make sure that they respond properly. So if that principle or that template existed at the time, what about now? So, and now that this has happened, well, we would expect, but these things they're not so common as people say common sense, where you take measures, other banks take measures, other agencies, institutions take measures to make sure you're ready for this kind of scenario if it's going to happen. Because when you drive on the street, you see certain things and you ask yourself questions, oh dear, I need to be cautious about my personal safety now, because several people out there are looking to see what they can do survive. So, for one, do you know what to say about all of that?
It's to be forearmed.
Yeah, so let's go then and take a look at some of the dailies here this morning. Vanguard newspaper focusing on the presidential tussle, they call it, anxiety as Tinubu, Atiku, Obi, APM resume battle at Supreme Court. So people are anxious about all of these things. Apex Court begins hearing today. We have confidence in Supreme Court, PDP. If you didn't see this statement from somewhere, you would have thought, something is wrong. But there you go. And then you get to see Atiku Obi engaging in another round of propaganda. So, yeah, so they'll see what happens there today. And then over the weekend as well, the courts were really busy. Plateau, Appeal Court sacks Senate Minority Leader Moatcom. So they also looking to see, wow, wait a minute, if it's the Appeal Court, is that the final stage for National Assembly?
I'm afraid so. I think, but in that case, I think a rerun was ordered.
Yeah.
So I think it might still have leeway.
You can imagine if there was no rerun and then it was just the final verdict. Politicians have got the heart, I tell you.
It's happened, you know. It's happened. I mean, Senator
Tough
Abbo,
to take.
Senator Elisha Abbo.
Oh.
Yeah, it's happened already. And I think also there was another case where another lawmaker was banned for 10 years for forgery. So...
oh, that's a big lead here.
Yeah, all these other stories that are not particularly making the front pages, or maybe they are, just not today, Monday, because, you know, they happened before now.
And then that SUV matter, I don't think we heard the last of it.
Oh, we shouldn't get the last of it.
Yeah, so it's also here. 57.6 billion naira for 360 SUVs. Serap drags reps to court.
How much again?
57.6 billion naira. Imagine if this money
and when they
is
get
in
to
production.
Court, then the House of Reps can tell the court about how this is about, you know, maybe the executive not showing example. Or I was going to say, hold on. I thought you had three separate arms of government and you have a duty to hold the executive arm of government accountable. Not that if you can't beat them, you join them. But really, I mean, if we're in dire straits, as we say we are, we have to ask, where precisely have we seen that exemplified in terms of the kinds of cars that have been purchased so far for use in both the executive arm and the legislature? The judiciary, we know that the judges get cars every 4 years or every 5. I'm not very certain now, and most of the cars they get it. But every single arm of government seems to have the powers to determine what kind of vehicles it buys. Is there a general policy regarding, you know, the fact that right now the country is struggling? Big question. But let's not talk too much.
Yeah, that's Vanguard this morning.
The story. I'm looking at Daily Trust for you, and they have this one. Domestic foreign airlines disagree on multiple designations. Are businesses at risk? Say indigenous carriers, go and build your capacity. As from foreign airlines. Are they quarreling amongst themselves? I don't know. Page 4 will give you details. What bilateral air service agreement says. Okay, so I think it's might be time to hear from the Minister of Aviation.
Yeah.
He had another designation again. Minister of Aviation. Was there something else attached to his designation?
Yeah, skip my mind now. But basically, aviation is the one.
There's a lead thing there.
We want to urgent attention.
So this certainly is not looking good. Page 4 is where you find details. Look at these other stories here. Beningwari villagers raise alarm over Ansaru militant president. Beg your pardon. Ansaru militant presence. Why am I saying president? We also have a number of other stories. Ordering contractors back to site without payment, wrong. Kuriwa tells federal government. And something for farmers here. Kano Dutse emirs seek government support for farmers. So we'll leave it there for Daily Trust newspapers.
Would you permit me to segue into something almost completely different this morning? On the front page of Leadership newspaper, something we've been talking about actually, and it's something that concerns young people. Look at it. 3 months after, student loan scheme yet to take off. And of course, you see some infographics on the front page right there. FG taking another look at the law. September-October deadline expires. No sign of Nigerian Education Bank. And on and on and on the front page this morning. So, who's to respond to this? Minister of Education? Is it the presidency? Is it the chief of staff? Someone needs to talk to Nigerians about that. That's the lead story of the Leadership newspaper. Of course, the Supreme Court story is also there right above the major story. Anxiety as Supreme Court rules on Atiku's motion today. Now, despite subsidy removal, oil revenue drops by 1.01 trillion naira in July. Has it picked up since between July and October? Find the details on page 7 of the paper this morning. And a number of other stories on the front page you'll find interesting. That's the Leadership newspaper today.
Take a look at this Nigeria next. Nigerians demand probe of alleged 2.9 trillion naira diversion under Buhari government. Urge Tinubu to direct new EFCC chairman Olukoyede to swing into action, bring culprits to book. Okay. So you may want to go there and see what's this 2.9 trillion naira. All right. So and then yeah, they have that story on the courts. The bottom strip, Gumi under fire over attack on FCT Minister Wike. Ohaneze, MBF, Pandev, others tag Islamic cleric as Confucianists. So you just look at all these things and look, we've got economic challenges here that we need to face and see how we're going to address it, get the economy back on track and get the industries working, get power supply up and running, get the purchasing power in good stead, ensure you show up secure. So many things we have to grapple with here. But that is this Nigeria today.
Did he say we have the economy to grapple with? Indeed,
Absolutely.
That's what The Guardian is focusing on this morning. At 1,200 naira to the dollar. Yes, you heard right. 1,200 naira to a dollar.
Oh boy.
985 naira per litre. Fuel spike squeezes air travel pricing.
Oh,
So
985 naira.
yeah, I guess that's aviation fuel. So you might, the next time you try to buy aviation, I mean, you try to buy an air ticket, and maybe it's already approaching 500,000 naira for a trip from here to Lagos, maybe a round trip. The answer is not far-fetched. It's not blowing in the wind. This is the reason. This is the reason. It's
Almost 350 round trip.
I don't want to say
400,000 naira round trip.
I don't want to say it's depressing, but it is. It is what it is.
Unless there's a synonym. Unless there's a synonym you want to use for the word depressing.
Maybe what was a euphemism? Because sometimes when you use the actual word, you know, the idea is not to depress people. The idea is to give people hope.
Yeah, but they need to come up with a strategy as well.
Yeah, but we need to we need to know. I mean,
Direction.
it's not just that. It's also the fact that you have to feel the hope too. And the reality sometimes must provide a window of hope. So, hey, this is what it is. That's why you're sitting on the front page of The Guardian. At 1,200 naira to the dollar, 985 naira per litre, fuel spike squeezes air travel pricing. And you all have a number of other stories there. And SARS, Falanos asks minister to review plan on 500 million naira fine for convicts. Okay, the Minister of Interior had said that he was going to pay, that the ministry was going to pay 500 million naira fine to ensure that, you know, convicts who couldn't pay their fines, you know, and had been languishing in jail as a result of the fact that they couldn't afford these fines, were released. But it does appear that the SAN has another idea as to how they can get these inmates released without paying this much money. So the story is somewhere inside the paper. You might want to read that particular story. Wike clarifies meeting with Israeli convoy as Pandev INC knock Gumi. That story is on page 3 of the paper. Rethink palliative, step up productive engagement. That story is also right there as well. And of course, coalition resorts to protest, lawsuit to stop purchase of 57 billion naira SUVs for lawmakers. We'll leave it there for the Guardian newspapers.
Look at the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. Also interested in the economy, Mark, where exchange rate, industries battle for survival as Nigerians suffer losses. That's the way the paper puts it this morning. Manufacturers pay up to 30 different taxes, levies annually, man laments. It goes back to that question you asked last week, Chamberlain. What's happening to Mr. Taiwo Yedele's team, structuring the taxes and all? Maybe they would have a response to that. And then, you know, this president was supposed to have spoken to something, was supposed to have taken an action based on what Mr. Yedele told us in the media, that they were waiting for the president's response to some of the recommendations, so findings and recommendations they have made. It's been how many weeks now? Dear Mr. President, we're waiting. Manufacturers pay up to 30 different taxes and levies annually. That's according to the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, and I'm guessing it's not just 1 naira or 2 naira. And then the second writer, petrol pump price hits 630 naira per litre in Abuja. More filling stations shut down. Pages 6, 7, and 8 have the details of that story. And a good number of other stories on the front page this morning for you to take a look at. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway will give traders at Kara other road setbacks 21 days to quit. We were just talking about this last week, guys, remember? That's on page 27. And that's the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Yeah, I know that the different states, I think different governments, the former government in Ogun State also attempted to evacuate them, but we know what became of it. But now, 21 days, how many days left now? 20? Okay, no, maybe still 20 and a half if today is just beginning. So they've given the reasons why they want them out of that place anyway. So we'll know, we'll see. So I'm then on to Daily Independent here today. Competition slows among banks as tech flattens service. Fintechs, big gainers, the paper reports here today. So, yeah, if they're talking about competition slowing, well, it's, you need to go ahead and see what context this is, because all of that question about ensuring that banks perform the primary role such that industries can thrive, and goodness, interest rates, who can touch it? Several people just, is almost untouchable, especially when you hear that several countries get it at 3%, way below that. And so you see, again, agencies, experts canvass removal of aviation parastatals from TSA. Aviation back there again. Say 40% deduction breaches ICAO recommendations, strangulating. Look, how about them ensuring that they keep the time and ensure the industry works first and foremost, and people can then relate with whatever demands they are making of government. But if all of this is not true, it's not going on, then the fees are not going down.
What would we do for airlines to just keep to time? What would we do?
It's simple. You know? It's supposed to be simple. They thought, they promised they could do it. That's why they got into the business in the first place. I mean, there's an airline in that industry that strives to keep the time.
Indeed.
Why not others?
Exactly. Big question, really. Big question. Look at this last one we take here now, the Abuja Inquirer. Looking at this, it says, Wiki under fire over Israel-Hamas war. And the minister responds, I do not determine foreign relations. The story is on page 3 of the paper, in case you're interested in it. Supreme Court judges dropped to 10 out of 21. Justice Datijo bows out. So it's a page 3 read for you. And just in case you're wondering why governors are meeting with the Minister of Solid Minerals, you might want to read the story somewhere on page 3 of the paper. You have 3 governors there. And we understand they're trying to build synergy with the Governors Forum on grey areas in mine administration in the country.
Grey areas.
Yeah.
Mineral, those resources are still under the purview of the federal government.
They are. So, but if, states are allowed to mine and go into partnerships, I guess there's still areas that are grey.
That means the oil industry too will be grey eventually. Because if the resources are allowed to, then they say, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
It's for the gander. The Niger Delta is already raising those complaints. But we do remember vividly the governor of Zamfara, former governor of Zamfara State, taking a solid bar of gold and presenting it to the president and saying, that's former President Buhari, saying this came from our state, we can do this. Something to that effect. And people were saying, oh,
if they do that by themselves.
If you do that by yourselves, isn't that contradicting the Constitution? Anyways, maybe that's why the
Can the state take crude and say, Mr. President, look at crude. We can also do this.
Chamberlain, please, the story is somewhere inside the paper. We'll leave it there for the Abuja Inquirer. Okay?
After all, it's about people who can do things and states doing things because we're in dire straits, as they tell us, with the economy. So what's wrong with creative thinking and ensure that, look, if it can get us out of the doldrums, why not? Who doesn't want out? Okay, let's see how much of that we can talk about when we return in just a moment. Don't go away.
Having also found that no merit exists in all the above 3 consolidated petitions, I join my learned brothers Amani Jesse in dismissing all the 3 petitions and abiding by the consequential orders made in the lead judgment.
Dissatisfied with the verdict of the Presidential Election Court on September the 6th, the 3 appellates, Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party, Labour Party's Peter Obi, and the Allied People's Movement, filed the appeals urging the Supreme Court to nullify the victory of President Tinubu. In the 42-page notice of appeal filed by 18 senior advocates and 47 lawyers, the former vice president anchored his appeal on 35 grounds. Amongst other things, the PDP candidate held that the lower court erred in law when it refused to uphold as mandatory electronic transmission of results for confirmation and verification of final results as introduced by the Electoral Act 2022 for transparency and integrity of results. In another ground of appeal, the appellants argued that the lower court erred in law when it failed to determine their case with respect to the mandatory verifications and confirmations required before the announcement of the result of the presidential election. They also faulted the lower court for its interpretation of the use of the word and the FCT in relation to Section 134(2)(b) of the 1999 Constitution. The appellants also touched on the issue on the use of what it called disparaging words by the court against Mr. Atiku Abubakar and the PDP, which they termed as indication of bias and which violated the rights of fair hearing and occasioned grave miscarriage of justice. In the final analysis, Mr. Abubakar and his party urged the Supreme Court to set aside the judgment of the Presidential Election Petition Court to declare that President Tinubu is not the winner of the polls, was not even qualified to contest the polls, and to instead declare the PDP candidate as the winner of the polls, or in the alternative to order INEC to conduct a second election between him and President Tinubu. While this was pending before the court, Atiku Abubakar on October the 6th filed new documents seeking the Supreme Court's nod to present a deposition on oath of the registrar of the Chicago State University concerning President Tinubu's academic records. Mr. Abubakar is questioning the authenticity of the president's academic certificate submitted to INEC, alleging forgery of the document, and seeking that he be disqualified and removed from office. The Labour Party and its presidential candidate on their part filed a 73-page notice of appeal. The document, which was filed by 13 senior advocates and 25 other lawyers, was anchored on 51 grounds. Among other arguments, Mr. Obi and the Labour Party said the Presidential Election Petitions Court erred in law and reached a wrong conclusion when it dismissed the petition he lodged to challenge the outcome of the presidential election. He maintains that the lower court carried out a miscarriage of justice against him when it held that he did not specify polling units where irregularities occurred during the election. Mr. Obi also accused the panel of erring in law and striking out paragraphs of his petition, dismissing his witness as incompetent, a situation which he says breached his right to fair hearing. The APM, on its part, has insisted that President Tinubu contested the presidential election without a lawful running mate. The party said that the withdrawal of Ibrahim Masari and the expiry of the 14 days permissible for changing or withdrawing candidates under Section 33 of the Electoral Act 2022 made President Tinubu's election and return invalid. There's been lots of speculations as to the composition of the panel to hear the appeal, and all eyes are on the Supreme Court to do justice in the 3 appeals before it.
Welcome back. Yes, indeed, that's is part of what we'll be focusing on today. We've got Mr. Ikazo Akariwe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, here with us. He is a former first Vice President of the NBA and convener, Lead the People. Good morning. Thank you for coming.
Good morning. Nice to be here again.
Well, first of all, the Justice Datijo bowing out of the Supreme Court, is that going to affect anything? I know that lawyers, justices had complained that they were short. They were under huge pressure. In fact, last week, I think it was in the House of Reps, but it was National Assembly, where they were trying to make a case that the president should appoint 3 more justices because the ones there are under huge pressure. So now, with him bowing out, what's the implication of that?
Yes, the Constitution makes provision for 21 justices of the Supreme Court. And with his leaving Friday this week, they're down to perhaps 10 of them. Like I said when I was here the last time, nobody understands why people who left the Supreme Court 3 years ago have not been replaced. Justice Unguta, who died 2 years ago, has not been replaced. Justice Oseji, who died like 2 years. In fact, Unguta is probably about 3 years now, or 2.5 years. Oseji, who died 2 years ago this month, has not been replaced. What is going on? So you now have a situation where you appoint 11 on one day, and those 11 do not have the opportunity of understudying before they become heads of the panels. So if you appointed somebody to replace Unguta 3 years ago, the person would have had 3 years experience now. At the apex, court. So the 10 who are there, and remember that in Nigeria, the Constitution allows virtually everybody to appeal. Unlike in the US, where it's only by judicial review. Not every case goes to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has hundreds of cases, thousands every year. They're coming in. The other day we were at the Supreme Court, we got a date for 2025.
What?
2025. I mean, well, there is a saying, justice
Even
delayed.
some visas are not that.
But it's not the fault of the justices. They can only do so much and no more. The 21 can't even cope. So there is something wrong with overworking the justices of the Supreme Court. There's no time to even meditate on the cases and create a philosophical basis for your decisions. There's so much on you which you must adjudicate upon, and you have a time frame. The NJC has given you a time frame within which you have to deliver the judgments. So we are suffering a wholesale failure in justice delivery, not because of the incompetence of the justices.
Wholesale
but because,
failure?
Yes, because of delays. And the delays are due in parts to two things: the depleting number of justices, but even more importantly, the constitutional allowance that everybody can come to the Supreme Court. So a tenant could actually take his landlord through the magistrate's court to the Supreme Court in 15 or 20 years or 25 years if he can afford it. We need to amend that aspect of the Constitution.
I was even going to go there.
Yes, thank you.
Is it out of place for the NBA to pick on these kind of issues and say, look, the country, we need to move forward. Hence, we're proposing this and this kind of amendments and see how they can push it through.
It's not out of place at all.
How come we haven't, unless I'm missing something, I've not seen or heard it?
Well, the NBA has been engaged in advocacy, but I'll be the first to say that the NBA can do more. We should be able to do more. We should really take this. I mean, our presidents have spoken about this, but I think we've come to the point where we need to not just speak about it, to engage the National Assembly on things like this. NBA should be doing more. I concede.
You're going to make a second point in terms of what?
Yes, well, I was going to say the Constitution needs amendment. Everybody can't come to the Supreme Court for any and every issue. I think that where we are now, we need to have regional, if you like, geopolitical courts of appeal or Supreme Courts, which will take a certain level of cases. I don't know what a land case emanating from the culture and customs of Nnewi is coming up to the Supreme Court for. So we should have a system where the Supreme Court should be circumscribed to constitutional issues and perhaps any other issue which would create a change in our judicial system or jurisprudence. And by that, I mean the Supreme Court should decide what cases they want to hear. Okay? The case law says that there are 5 ways of proving your title to land. For example, 5 ways of proving your title to land. Somebody goes to the High Court and he loses. The High Court says, you have not proved your 5 ways. You didn't prove any of them. Then he appeals to the Court of Appeal. Court of Appeal says the same thing. What is he doing in the Supreme Court? Is it likely that the Supreme Court is going to say, oh, you proved one way, actually, and the 2 lower courts made a mistake? Most unlikely. So some cases should not go up there.
Even when cases are in Supreme Court, we hear and read, they say, no, they're going back to the Supreme Court to interpret their own judgment.
Yes.
And you just wonder. But, you're going to... I'm just wondering because now, if I could move into...
Matter at hand today.
Yeah, even though... cautiously as well. So we're not going to be discussing what the priors before the court, so we'll not do that. But you already know how the hoopla about the last decision, the judgment, and what lots of people, how, of course, those who lost usually will not be happy about this. And then there's a build-up to this particular scenario today now. Right. Yes, they're beginning to hear the case. So in light of the kind of impression people have out there, what to expect, how this case should go. And I just wonder your impression about, is it that what you have heard and read, do we understand what the issues are? Are we overtly optimistic for those who are, and then those who think, no, don't worry, the Supreme Court can't do, there's already something established here. All of that expectation.
Yes.
Help us interpret that in the light of how the court works.
Yes. Let me, first of all, say that I'm going to be as circumspect as you have been because of the principle of sub judice. Sub judice means under judicial consideration, therefore not open to public discussion. So since these issues are under judicial consideration, I'm going to be really very careful. Now, then, to go to the main issue, Nigerians have been very unfair to the justices. They have. But I also understand why. The reason is because many Nigerians don't understand the way the court works and do not understand the mind of the court, the thinking of the court. The reason a court will reason the way it would. You know, all the justices at various levels have been tarred with a brush of perhaps iniquity. It's not fair. It's not fair. I wish I could give a real-life example, but the matters are now in the Supreme Court. But if I will attempt to give a real-life example, no, I can't. I simply can't. But if I were to condescend upon the particulars of some of the things the court pronounced upon, the Court of Appeal sitting as a tribunal, if I were to explain the reasoning, we see that their hands were tied not by man, but by the law and by the way things are, and by the lawyering. You see, when I was going to go there. Yes, when lawyers, when they present things in a certain way, let me give a hypothetical example now. Hypothetical example. I am the lawyer to the plaintiff, you are the lawyer to the defendant. And I file my case. And I say 1, 2, 3, 4 things are what I want. This is the problem. Then you, the lawyer to the defendant, you reply me. Then, by law, I have a right to reply your reply. But you have no right to reply to my reply. So I file the papers, you respond, then I respond to your response, and that's it. Now, in my response to your response, I raise new issues, which you cannot respond to. The judges are going to say, these issues you raised in your response to his response should have been in your initial claim so that he could respond. At this point, he can't respond. We are throwing them out. And then somebody says, oh, no, the justices have taken bribe. But I, the lawyer, I didn't raise certain issues at the right time. I raised them at the wrong time when you could no more reply. I'm not speaking about what happened at the tribunal. I'm just giving a hypothetical example.
Yeah. Well, what if somebody says, but wait a minute, these issues that I raise here, even though you think that he cannot respond, but he's not entirely oblivious to these issues because I had mentioned it in passing and at that stage, so he knows that this is already in there. So if I then decide to push it further, push the envelope, can we then claim that he cannot respond?
The courts, the superior courts, and by superior courts I mean from the High Court upwards, are courts of record. And everything must be reduced to writing. And so that there can be an end to litigation, so that there can be a timeous resolution of disputes. This is the way it's done. The plaintiff, petitioner files, the defendant responds, the plaintiff has the last word, then you go into hearing. So it cannot be said, oh, that you ought to have known or you know. No, whatever is the basis of your claim, front load it. You present it, so the man can respond, because here the other side, audi alteram patem, is a cornerstone of our justice system. In the law school, we are told that God, even God, asked Adam, what have you done? Even God, who is omniscient and omnipresent, and knew what Adam had done, he still asked Adam, what have you done? Then Adam responded, The woman that you gave me has caused me to sin. So if God gave Adam an opportunity to respond,
and front-load this case,
how much more? How much more man? So clearly, if I, as a lawyer, I was derelict in bringing out what I needed to bring out first, or maybe my clients gave me the information late. It's so difficult, particularly in a regime of electoral limits or timelines. You must do this, no amendments after this time. So when the regime is, you must file everything within this number of days, you can't amend after this number of days because we must give judgment within this number of days. You are sunk if you've made such a mistake. But please, I'm not talking about what happened in the tribunal. I'm just going hypothetical to try to explain to people the kind of the conundrum the justices are faced with. And the man on the street said, how can they brought this thing? Our lawyers presented this and the judges threw it out. How can the judges, something is wrong with them? No. The lawyers presented certain things at the wrong time. I emphasize this is purely hypothetical.
Okay. So, I mean, I think we started this conversation by talking about, you spoke about the need to reform our constitution. I would have been surprised if that didn't come up. After all, he's the convener of We the People.
Maybe we should try We the media. And not the people. Or the people are part of the media.
And that clearly speaks to, you know, our constitution. But be that as it may, I mean, the fact that we do not want to dwell on the matter at hand today, we do know that our judges, our justices, they bear a burden. There is an expectation, nonetheless, regardless of the side of the divide, and it is not a very easy task. So I'll ask you in very clear terms, looking at all of the scenarios before their lordships today, what is the burden that the judiciary or the justices bear?
The burden they bear well, generally, whether they have this presidential election issues or not before them, they bear a burden to do justice. The justices sit on the seat of the Almighty God. God is the God of justice. We call them my Lord, not because they are lords in themselves, or because they sit on the seat of the Lord. The magistrate we call your worship, not because we worship you, but you are standing in the stead of he who we all worship. And so at the back of the mind of every judge is, I have to do justice, or ought to be on the mind of every judge. I've got to do justice. Because justice is the life wire of every society. If there is a sense that injustice has occurred, societies can break down completely. So that is the general burden they bear. And it is more so in a matter like this. I was shocked beyond words when I saw on social media the phone numbers of all the justices of the Supreme Court. And the person who posted it, of course, everything is anonymous, said, phone them and send them messages and warn them to do the right thing. That's intimidation. Of course, again, if that happened, then the justices I come under even more pressure to do the right thing. But they can only do the right thing within the perimeters, within the framework of the law. And many times within the framework of what the lawyers are presenting, which is why you have to be very careful the lawyer you choose. Because will a judge really begin to do the work of a lawyer? I don't see that happening. I've been in matters where the judges said, we are not Father Christmas to give what you didn't ask for. And these are some of the issues behind it. But let me just summarize and say that they have a burden to do justice. And many times the opinion or view of what is justice in the public eye may not accord with the statute books. It's a problem. The public sees certain things as clear-cut and dry. But it is not always like that.
It's a very tricky, I mean, this conversation is almost difficult to have because you're not even sure where you're crossing the line now. But I'm just looking at, I mean, apart from you've spoken at the burden to do justice, regardless. And justice to the different parties that are concerned will mean different things.
Yes.
Justice to the, even the public that are watching too,
yes.
Will also mean different things.
Yes.
But there have been externalities. Only on Friday, I had a conversation with a lawmaker. And, he is a lawmaker heading the House Committee on Electoral matters. And one of the things he was talking about in terms of reforms, and I think people have been calling for that, is that all judicial matters should be resolved before candidates are sworn into, winners of voted elections are sworn into positions, because he believes that people who are sworn in have an unfair advantage if their cases are still in court while they're in that position. Is it something you agree with?
It's such an intelligent view. And the idea that we swear in our candidates, the purported winner of elections in Nigeria, before the court to resolve the matter, is such a harebrained idea. It's so embarrassing. It doesn't speak well of us at all. You see, litigation is civilized warfare. The alternative to litigation is rioting and bloodshed and trouble. So if the people must not be allowed to go to the streets, let them be encouraged to come to the courts. It's better for everybody. And when you swear in the governor or the senator or the president, and the case is still in court, justice must not only be done, but be seen to be done. So everybody feels, wow, he's already there, the commander-in-chief. He's there, he's the governor. And the case is in court. No, he just makes a phone call and intimidates the justices, even if he won't do that. It seems to me as if elections should be like 6 months earlier. And let the outgoing incumbents, or well, if he's still the incumbent and it was a re-election, let him just be there. He'll be a lame duck at that stage, but the cases should be fully
Can
litigated.
he really be a lame duck?
Well,
sitting on that seat?
Well, yes, I guess so. But somebody who is on the way out, or potentially on the way out, will be said to be, in some sense, a lame duck. I see the point of your observation. So we certainly need to have the cases fully ventilated. First tribunal of first instance to the Supreme Court before anybody is sworn in. It's better for even the perception. So that lawmaker is on firm ground.
All right. I think we should go to a break, but we'll be back. There's still a lot of grounds to cover. Don't forget, we're keeping tabs as well on the courts. What is going on there? So if you want to be a fly on the wall, just might have one for you. So stay on with us.
Discover Lipton's flavorful and balanced taste. We pick fine quality tea leaves from selected tea gardens around the world to give you Lipton Yellow Label's flavorful and balanced taste in every sip.
Hey, big papa.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Sit down.
How you doing now?
They can't wait.
I bring your medicine.
Thank you.
Papa, where Miko?
Miko don't go work. Miko don't join our business.
Oil business?
Yes, sir.
Which company? Papa, Miko don't they follow them go cook oil? That's illegal.
Small, yeah. No,
It's a crime. That kind of business no good for Miko at all. It is illegal and very dangerous.
What happened?
Papa, na fire for where we dey cook oil. Who just hear sound from nowhere?
My country people, palava we bunker an illegal refinery dey cause for we community e too plenty. Our pikin dem we get better future don dey peme. On top, we dey carry our own hand, spoil we land and water. Abeg you, no follow the do or sponsor this kind of business. Now Pipeline Infrastructure Nigeria Limited and NNPCL say make we tell you now.
To give the confidence that only comes from knowing you are fully sorted. To show up for you just when you need a hand. And when retirement comes with all its worries and storms, to ensure we will stand by you and give you the coverage that you deserve. Make the perfect choice. Choose PAL Pensions today.
PAL Pensions, your pal for life.
Southwood. Fine furnishings for your home and office. Southwood is a Nigerian company dedicated to improving the quality of workplaces and homes. Our space planning and craftsmanship allows you to create a highly customized and comfortable office environment for hardworking and busy executives. Southwood solutions are perfect for today's flexible work cultures. Teamwork, transparency, collaboration. A well-designed and comfortable work environment is proven to increase productivity and morale. Our elegant home furnishings provide the ultimate in comfort and quality. Southwood, furnishings that shape your world. Visit us today at southwoodnigeria.com. Email us at furniture@southwoodnigeria.com or call 0700 Furniture.
Thank you for staying with us. We still have Mr. Ikazo Akariwe, who is with us in Abuja studio. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Allow me to piggyback on what Maokwe asked you the other time about having all of the issues resolved before the fellow is sworn in. We featured a lawyer yesterday week who suggested something perhaps even a little more extreme, if I can say. He suggested that we should have all issues, all pre-election issues resolved even before the elections, particularly because, one, according to him, we have 4 years between elections, and secondly, that's something that's already been practiced in the US. He suggested that, look, if we're able to resolve all pre-election matters before elections, those things are settled well in advance. He even cited the issue of Mr. Donald Trump, who became president at some point, and then there were more than 100, I think it's more than 200 cases before the election, all resolved before the election. What's your take on that?
All pre-election issues resolved before the election. That seems to me to be a tough sell. I can understand all elections emanating howsoever from the elections being resolved before swearing in. But pre-election issues resolved before the elections, that's hearing it for the first time. I guess it is doable, but let me quickly observe to us that the justice delivery system is suffering from electoral matters. You have to suspend all your cases, not all, but quite a significant proportion of cases suspended to enable judges leave their regular beats to go and hear these cases. But the solution is not rocket science. The judges are too few. Even discounting electoral matters, the judges are too few. There is no state in Nigeria today we should have less than 100 judges, High Court judges, and not less than 200 magistrates if we will stop paying lip service to effective dispensation of justice. But when I say 100 judges, I mean 100 highly qualified legal practitioners who have practiced law and so can hold their own on the bench. So if we increase exponentially the number of judges, if the Federal High Court, which is saddled with the jurisdiction over pre-election matters, the Federal High Court would have no less than 300 judges, why not? But if you are going to just have 50-something Federal High Court judges, 70 Federal High Court judges, already overworked with dockets of about 400 to 500 matters, and then you're going to now saddle them with pre-election matters which must be finished before the elections, we're going to really have a very difficult situation on our hands. So it's doable, but for us to resolve the matter of electoral disputes in court, and not just electoral disputes, but for us to resolve them, we need to exponentially increase the number of judges of our courts.
Okay. Well, let me ask you a we the people question, if I may. You began the other time by, talking about the reaction of people to some judgments that come across to them because they just don't understand how it works. So it leads me to question again how much education people have about judgments, proceedings, and all those things. So help us understand the quantum or otherwise of the knowledge of the law, the legality of the law, and the morality of the law that come from these cases, whether our people understand it or not. And what should people understand when it doesn't sound like what they think is right?
I have thought long and hard about this. When I hear the commentaries of the public about judgments of court, and when I realize that the commentaries are off the mark, I now realize that the courts need to create and staff a robust public relations department. The Supreme Court has a public relations department, for example. My friend, Dr. Festus Akonde, a good man, an effective public relations practitioner, chairs that department. But having said that, I realize that that department needs to be enlarged and needs to expand its scope by engaging on a daily basis issues that are coming up in social media. Nigeria is a democracy now, and Nigerians are politically alive and active. So should there not be now a necessity for, let us explain this judgment. Every time there is a judgment of public interest and contention, perhaps a department needs to break it down. This was the raison d'etre for the decision. This is why it happened. And not only break it down in English language, but in as many languages as our electronic media are today covering, so that the masses are entitled to know, so that the masses can be educated. Because this wholesale accusation, every time a party loses a case, is because the judges were bribed. And educated Nigerians say it. And we who are in practice, we know that it is not so. That is not to say that we've not had a few cases of judges who did not abide by their oath of office. But I can tell you for free that the wholesale demonization of the justice sector is unfair and untrue. And, you know, the justice sector is in danger. It's in danger of being capsized by the public misunderstanding and misperception. Again, judges are human. Judges can make mistakes, which is why we have the high courts, and you can appeal from high court to court of appeal. And from court of appeal to the Supreme Court. You can appeal from the magistrate's court to the high court. And then wherever 2 or 3 lawyers are gathered, there's a difference in opinion.
Okay.
So there are so many opinions.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
The judges, by and large, they do their best.
Well, let me ask you this one, because our correspondent is standing by, but let me just ask you this one question. A good number of people, of course, the political parties, all the people who are making their cases, are hoping that one way or the other, whatever it is that they have, they're going to have a fair hearing and get justice. But one of the issues that I'm pretty sure you are aware is making the rounds is whether or not any evidence is admissible now, or are they statute barred? Just an education, no, nothing complicit. There are those who have said that, look, no evidence can be admitted by the Supreme Court. Yes, some evidences can be admitted based on one thing or the other. Just help us understand. So that we, the people who are not as learned in law as you, can understand why or what the basis of some of these things are. If it is too risky, just let us know.
Yes, it seems to me, it does seem to me that the issue you have just asked me to pronounce upon, to speak to, is one of the issues the Supreme Court will be looking at. I think the petition, the appeals of the PDP were all over social media, and I have looked at them. Sub judice means under judicial consideration and therefore prohibited from public discussion.
Oh dear.
I appeal to you, my good friends, let's leave that. The Supreme Court is going to, they have up to November 5, I think, up to November 5. So in less than 2 weeks. It might even be this week. You never can say, because they have up to November 5. So after November 5, we will come here and we are going to ventilate our different views on the matter.
Let's just have a sneak peek on what to expect today. So we've got our correspondent, Ella, who is there, excuse me, covering the courts. So, Ella, good morning to you. So what is going on where you are at the moment? Are they all gathering? Is everything set? What's the mood right now in the courts?
Good morning, Chamberlain. I can tell you that the Supreme Court here is a beehive of activities. A journey that started in March is finally here at the Supreme Court for the final lap on the victory of President Tinubu. As you can see behind me, you can see security agencies. They are practically taking over the place from the DSS. And at the gate, we have the police, just like how we had at the tribunal some months back. So right now, people are just waiting to see how they could enter into the courts and go through the checks to see how they could get their names. Some have not been allowed to enter, especially the cameramen, but there's a back and forth on how to ensure that they can come in to take some shots. And then what we're expecting today is going to be a long, long sitting, because we have the appeals from the PDP, the Labour Party, and the APM, who are challenging the judgment of the tribunal. That's the Presidential Election Tribunal, which had declared President Tinubu as president. And also, there's also the motion by the vice president, the former vice president and the presidential candidate of the PDP, who is asking that the court should admit the documents from the Chicago State University as fresh evidence in the sitting. But if you can remember, the lawyers to Tinubu had said that that can't be possible because it was not admitted at the instance at the tribunal. So, and they have passed the appeals here at the Supreme Court. I beg your pardon. So it's not possible for them to admit such documents today. And all that is there's going to be a lot of back and forth from the respondents, as the INEC and President Tinubu and the APC. They're also going to state relevant laws on why such documents, that's the fresh evidence by Vice President Atiku Abubakar, former Vice President, I beg your pardon, should not be admitted as fresh evidence today in court. So it's going to be a long sitting today. We expect to be here for a while. And then probably after the hearings and the counter arguments, a date may be reserved for judgment, or if it's like in the past, I've seen in the past, judgment may be delivered today. It's not far from possible, and then a date to be reserved for reasons that's happened in the past, and we expect that may also happen today. That's under probability, or they will just fix a date to come back for judgment. Chamberlain.
Promises to be very interesting, but could you tell us, what about the APM? Many wonder, what are they seeking?
Sorry, could you come again?
The APM, what about their case? Well, what exactly are they asking for?
Just like they had at the tribunal, if you remember, they're also saying that the Vice President Shetima had double nomination. So they're still standing on that ground. And even though the presidential tribunal had struck it out, they still brought the same appeal here. That is one of the appeals that will be heard from the APM this morning.
Now, about the coverage, you know, the last time it wasn't clear whether or not media was going to be allowed to cover it because they had moved it. And then after a while, it was concluded that no, that wasn't going to happen. But somehow, almost at the last minute, then that notice came and then saying, look, okay, yes, that can happen. So in this case, is it a similar scenario, or have they flatly said, look, no media, no cameras inside the courts? You can't even just face the lawyers and back the judges. No such thing this time.
Absolutely not, I can tell you this morning, because right now the cameramen are even outside the court. They have not been allowed to even go in to even take the usual shots and take the usual shots as is usually done. So right now, to even live coverage is way out of it.
Oh boy, dashes our hopes. I don't know if Ayo was expecting something. Ayo, nothing for you.
Well, I wasn't even expecting that one because I think we've heard from a number of lawyers about that and how it puts the judges or justices at risk. But, Ella, what I would want to ask, I mean, you've talked about the fact that there's been some layers of security in the perimeter. Any sighting of supporters of any of the those who are adjudicating in the courts, any supporters of whatever political party or individual around the courts, are they allowed anywhere near?
From here, that's right outside the courtroom, not within the premises, and I don't think they'll be allowed to come into the courtroom. Those who are just in are those who have their names on the list from the Supreme Court.
No, now, any expectations? Any expectations of you? I mean, from your experience, you know, covering this bit, what's unique in this one, or is it just another one?
Please, could you come again?
I said, from your experience, Ella, covering the judiciary, is there anything unique or peculiar about this particular one, or it's just another one?
I dare say it's just like every other sitting that we've covered. It's the same arguments year in, year out, but we never can tell. This year may be different, but the words on the street from everybody might feel that it's the same judgment. They're going to uphold the judgment from the tribunal, but that's just the word on the street. We could expect something different from the 7-man justices that will sit from 9 a.m.
Most certainly expecting that you give us more, you know, as things unfold. Thank you so much, and all the best. And please keep safe. I want you for that. But let me ask you, Sakariwe, back to you now. I was trying to get information about how much understanding people have about the legality or the morality of the law whatever it is that is presented at the end of the day.
Yes. Let me just say something emanating from that sound bite. You asked if the press were going to be allowed into the court, if there was going to be live coverage of the proceedings. I think that is one way to go. We need to demystify the courtroom. We need to make plain as we can the proceedings of court and what goes on in there. And I am yet unable to understand why the cameramen are not allowed into the court. For a high-profile case like this one, and like when it was before the tribunal, I think that the Supreme Court should even have her own cameras, the Court of Appeal to have her own cameras, which will be filming the courtroom proceedings. And then the various networks will syndicate with them and collect the videos and then play it or transmit it to their viewers. It will help to some extent to demystify the courtroom and enlarge understanding of what goes on in there. Many people were upset. I read that on social media. You refused to allow us watch the proceedings. Then you transmitted live the judgment. Why did you transmit the judgment? And you know it was such a boring thing. You know, but where the fireworks was ongoing, the arguments, the objections, and the examination of witnesses, they were not transmitted live. Then you decide to, what was the rationale behind now deciding to transmit the judgment, people reading for 12 hours and lawyers sleeping off in court and so on. All that was now in the public domain.
Not just lawyers, even us.
Even the press.
I was there too.
I saw one of your
people. Out.
Yes. I didn't see you, but I saw one of your famous people.
I dodged the cameras. I was fagged out.
Yes, so there was need to have really done the proceedings, transmit the proceedings live. And I think that's where we are being too conservative, if you ask me.
It'll be interesting to see if that will be adopted eventually. But I was going to ask you if you think that the presidential matter, because I think almost every single presidential matter, maybe aside from the very first one in 2015, yeah, that's one that didn't go to court at all. And the circumstances were very, interesting. But then in 1999, after the first elections for the dawn of the Fourth Republic was conducted, the major rival in that particular election went to court, and I think he only stopped at the initial presidential election petition tribunal. He didn't go further. Apart from these two,
Olufalaye.
Yes, Olufalaye. Almost every other case has gotten up to the Supreme Court, and it seems that nothing is resolved or nothing is accepted as final until it is at the Supreme Court. We've already done some amendments now in such a way that for the presidential elections, there are only two courts. The Court of Appeal serving as initial presidential election petition tribunal, and then the Supreme Court. Do you think we should just have the Supreme Court intervene once and for all in the presidential election petition tribunal?
I'd rather we follow the current system. Because if the Supreme Court it becomes the first and the last arbiter, that means Supreme Court will have to take evidence. Not that the Supreme Court cannot take evidence in certain situations. The Supreme Court is empowered to act as a court of first instance, but it is better for the perception of justice that 5 justices sat down and heard the case, and then if you were not satisfied, you went up before a further 7. So a total of 12 justices have heard your case. I would rather that the Supreme Court maintains its position as a purely appellate court in such a situation.
Okay. It'll be interesting to see how that eventually pans out. But if we're also looking to speed up processes ahead of, swearing in of candidates, some people will say maybe that's the way we should go. And that's what some countries have done.
I see. Well, we can still speed up. We can give 6 months. 6 months for the entire litigation system. Let litigation take place in 6 months, and
will it be enough
after that? It can be enough. Nobody thought this 180 days would be enough, because once upon a time we were in tribunals for 3 years. The Ngige case in Anambra State, for example. But I think that one area we need to explore, if we will reduce litigation, we need to introduce proportional
representation.
Yes.
That's parliamentary style, isn't it?
Yes.
We can bring in, do we switch to parliamentary? Is that what you're asking?
Not really. Even within our system now, you see, the winner takes all situation is what is spawning a lot of litigation. If now the person who wins the president, like I think it was about 40% or so that the president got, if he gets that, if he wins that, and then the House of Assembly, the National Assembly, it just represents the percentage he got. So
that be coalition government.
Then the PDP got like 6.9 million or so. The PDP has a number of assemblymen proportional to the votes a candidate got. Yeah. Labour also. Litigation will drop because, okay, we didn't win, but we have a fair number of persons in government. So we'll now find that a coalition system of government will begin to arise. Because it will drop litigation.
They spend a lot of money in litigation, as a matter of fact. We understand that to see...
but if you think litigation is expensive, try rioting and bloodshed and the alternative to litigation.
Civilized warfare
litigation is civilized warfare, yes.
All right,
better to jaw in court than to war on the streets. Let me paraphrase Winston Churchill.
All right, Mr. Akariwe is a senior advocate of Nigeria, former first vice president of the NBA and convener of We the People. But next is, we'll talk about, those recommendations about reforming the electoral process. Part of the issues there, transmission of results electronically, part of that as well, ending cases before time. How will these fly? That's part of what we'll be focusing on next. So don't go away.
Southwood. Fine furnishings for your home and office. Southwood is a Nigerian company dedicated to improving the quality of workplaces and homes. Our space planning and craftsmanship allows you to create a highly customized and comfortable office environment for hardworking and busy executives. Southwood solutions are perfect for today's flexible work cultures. Teamwork, transparency, collaboration. A well-designed and comfortable work environment is proven to increase productivity and morale. Our elegant home furnishings provide the ultimate in comfort and quality. Southwood, furnishings that shape your world. Visit us today at southwoodnigeria.com. Email us at furniture@southwoodnigeria.com or call 0700 Furniture.
All cases at the tribunal would be resolved before the swearing in on May 29th for the presidential and in June for the National Assembly.
Do you think that is feasible?
It will take every one of us, because most of the cases we are having in court, I think we have over about 90% of all the National Assembly members are in court. I am still in. After winning at the tribunal, the lady still went to another appeal. And you can't hold people not to. But what do we do to ensure that we put on something that will safeguard this system? Because we cannot continuously engage the judiciary without any kind of guideline. We must be able to create something that will say, okay, these are the cases that will go to court. These are the cases that you cannot. Or probably because, I don't know, we are overwhelming the judiciary already. Most other cases are actually being put aside now because of the tribunals. Maybe we need to invite some of the retired justices or so to join in and create, but we must ensure that we have open-end situation. All cases must be resolved before swearing in, because that's the only thing that will give everybody equal and level playing ground. If a governor has been sworn in, he has a power to influence whatever will happen. If the president has been sworn in, he has the power to use the office to influence the judgment.
You believe so?
It's possible. As Nigerian, as a lawyer, even the lawyer of the opponent needs favor from government.
All right, so yeah, there you go. Mr. Musa Alwa-Rafsanjani joins us next. As you've seen there, he's the Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center and Head of Transparency International here in Nigeria. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Good morning.
That was quite interesting. Yes, we'll talk about some of the recommendations that came through and suggestions at the retreats by the senators in Uyo recently. But if you could just take it off from what the honourable gentleman was talking about there, how he thinks, look, if we don't do something about this, if you're sitting at that number one seat, almost everybody needs some sort of favour. Even the opposition lawyer, he says, will need something from government. So you cannot afford to go against, because if that happens, you may lose certain ground. So do you consider his positions valid and needs to be looked into?
Absolutely. In the context of Nigerian elite that have appears to lost their bearing to stand for justice, I think what he said is just simply right. The materialism that has taken over many people's consciousness has undermined the integrity in the whole system. So everybody, most people, that are in the position to speak the truth, you see them, they are not speaking the truth, or they are simply just being quiet. So this is a major challenge, and you can look at it from different, stakeholders in Nigeria. Religious leaders who are supposed to say the truth, sometimes they just decide to keep quiet and ask the followers to pray for oppressors. Community leaders, they are also in the same shoe. So in the past, we all know how our grandparents, have stand for the truth. will face a governor, a minister, a local government chairman, a director, a president, and tell him the truth. Not in an abusive way, but in a very corrective way. Now, tell me, who do you see speaking the truth to our leaders? Whether privately, whether openly, we hardly see those things happening. And that is why now you will see that religious leaders have vertically become, with due respect, beggars, because a governor will call them and they will rush to come to him. In the past, the governor will have to come to community leader or religious leader in whatever capacity they find themselves. Now, they are running after government house all the times or running to come to the villa. So I think that has seriously undermined the integrity and the capacity and the respect that they're supposed to have, and also caution leaders when they are doing wrong things. But, you know, that is the reason why the media and the civil society must continue to rise and be conscious of the society. If these other traditional, people that are supposed to tell the truth are deciding to keep quiet because of what will come to their pocket, I think media and civil society job is about sacrificing, is about patriotism, and therefore we must continue to speak the truth. We must continue to call for correctness. Civil society groups, they advocate for amendment, for reforms, for ensuring that we follow the due process. And that's all. And they do this through providing credible information, through research, through advocacy, through creating awareness, facilitating dialogue and understanding among both the government and even within the intergovernment agencies, so that there will be smooth running and governance in the country. But if every Nigerian now will have to keep quiet because he is afraid or she's afraid that they will not give him appointment, or they will not give him money, or they will not give him payable, then we are in trouble. And that is the reason why, in particular, judges are given this special consideration of respect and regard, that they are supposed to play justice. They are not supposed to compromise and be doing all this kind of funny thing that we are saying, delivering judgments through Zoom, because you know what you are doing porn night. So I think it is important.
You think something is wrong with that?
It is wrong. It is wrong. If you know that what you are doing is fair and, justice, why are you afraid? As a judge, you should also know that you are making sacrifice. Why are you running? If you know that you believe what you are doing, you should be able to face it and say the truth and explain why you have taken that position. Like we have seen our, previous judges, in this country that have the courage. They were not afraid of any president or governor or minister. And they are not looking for materialism to gather to buy houses abroad and in Nigeria. They were purely honest, sincere, patriotic, and nobody can even near them with any bribe. But now we see what is going on now. People are even struggling to be appointed in the election tribunal as a judge, because they know once they are there, that is it. They have.
Do you have a good authority that some of them are struggling to be part of the tribunal?
It is there. Look, in Nigeria, you buy every appointment now. What are you saying? Go everywhere.
You buy every appointment?
Yeah, I am telling you, this is what Nigerians are facing through. Even to get admission, you have to do that. To go to even hospital to get, attended to, somebody will want you to give something. So there is no way to run away from this fact. It's happening, and a lot of people are saying it, and it's now left for government to sit down and block those leakages. It's happening. Your son, somebody, okay, you are a popular person, maybe your son can get job at some of those places that is completely prohibiting for poor people, children. But I am telling you, if you are a honest and genuine Nigerians in this country now, for you to follow the process, the due process, it's like they will be laughing at you. But we are determined to continue to do the right thing.
Yeah, I understand your point that in some areas, certain things are happening that should not happen, but it doesn't mean it's happening everywhere.
Most places.
It's something we should address.
Exactly,
really,
most places.
Forward. Yeah. But in terms of some of those recommendations that they suggested, the president should not be the one to appoint INEC chairman, ensure that you put into the laws or make it mandatory to transmit results electronically. If you could start with first that of INEC.
Yes.
Because now some of the headlines is they are trying to see how they can unbundle INEC. They use that word deliberately. So will the president not appointing INEC chairman affect anything?
So first and foremost, I want to align myself and the organization that I represent, Transition Monitoring Group, TMG, CISLAC, Transparency International, and other organizations that I belong to.
How many
we are actually, in full support that President Tinubu should do something historic, memorable, and something that his name will be remembered. Just like you had with President Yaradua, who admitted that there were some certain areas that were wrong with his election, and he was determined to ensure that we carry out electoral reforms. And you remember, he set up credible Nigerians comprising of different actors to come and do a very robust work that will have helped us to address exactly, a waste report that will have helped us to address some of these. You remember, even Professor Jega was a member. Olisa Abakobo was a member. Professor Jibrin was a member. Quite a number of places. All of these actors were all there. They neutrally brought in people who will do justice to it. Now, unfortunately, politics after he died came and took over that beautiful work that has been done that will have led us to having more credible and transparent election in this country. So what we are urging President Tinubu to do, now that he is there, he should initiate a genuine process of addressing those gaps in our electoral reform. Some of it require constitutional amendment. Some of it require National Assembly to either legislate or to amend. You remember, in 2014, I was at the National Conference organized by Jonathan government, and that committee, that conference brought in a broad recommendation on amending or addressing electoral gaps in our country. Unfortunately, they never implemented that, And Buhari, it took him almost 7 years at the 10th year of his administration for him to even agree to sign some of the amendments that we have today in our Electoral Act. So I am saying that President Tinubu should take advantage of the crisis that we have, which is a crisis of confidence in the entire electoral system by many Nigerians and the international community, to begin to bring a process, genuine process, that will address and that will reform and have a more sound electoral system that will enable Nigerians to participate, that will enable Nigerians to believe in what our institutions are. Because it's very painful to see that Nigerians don't even believe in our officials. They don't believe in our institutions, because our institutions and officials that are given the trust, the opportunity to do the right things, Nigerians, they see it differently. So it is an opportunity for Mr. President to set up a genuine committee that will look at gaps within the Constitution and within the Electoral Act so that we can address some of these things. The last speaker was talking about...
We need another committee. I mean, what exactly are the committees in the House and in the Senate supposed to do? Because if they are already saying that this is what, was a Senate retreat, where these proposals came out from, if they're already looking in that direction, what do we need another committee
Yes, because in Nigeria, as far as Nigerian legislators are concerned, if things do not emanate from president, it hardly gets speedy recognition, consideration. So it is better we have both the legislature and the executive speaking on the same direction on the need to have this fundamental electoral reform in our constitution, in our electoral system. Otherwise, if it is just one-sided, the National Assembly can do the work like they have done during Buhari, and he will not look, Tinubu may not look at it. But if there's a buying-in of both the president and the National Assembly, the civil society will always continue to provide the support to make sure that this thing happens, just like we had even with the current Electoral Act that was amended. It was largely the civil society engine work that helped to provide what we even have, as better Electoral Act. So likewise too, we need to have both the executive and the legislature to agree that, look, we have something fundamental wrong in our Electoral Act and we need to amend it. And not only amending it, complying with it, because having it is a different thing. politicians agreeing to comply with it, and of course, even the electoral body to implement it is another thing. And that is why civil society will always continue to advocate and ensure that we observe and monitor and document breaches so that we will always change it. So I am appealing to both the National Assembly, who have attended this retreat, who have seen these gaps, that they should actually move fast, getting the executive to also be on the same, thing. We don't need to waste time for that, because if we are serious, this can be done within the shortest period of time, and then you can restore hope and confidence on Nigerians that, yes, they can participate in the election. Because before 2023, you remember, Nigerians were not interested. It has to take the commitment of civil society, who they got assurance from INEC that this time around there will not be 4-9 in the election. And civil society went to the field, mobilized the citizens to get to the PVC, get to register first, get to their PVC, and then come out to vote. Now, the Nigerian people, many of them, they are having a belief that the system will no longer be, the electoral system will no longer be transparent, inclusive, and therefore they may not necessarily want to continue to pursue this thing. But we have opportunity if we are able to genuinely address some of these gaps that we have noted, and even during the retreat, and to start with, first, President Tinubu must not appoint politicians, whether APC, whether opposition party, as card-carrying members in INEC. If you do that, you are undermining the constitutional provision, because the Constitution is very clear. You cannot populate the place with people who are politicians, who are card-carrying politicians, and you must not carry people who are crooks, who are criminal, who have record of being involved in fraudulent and criminal thing.
Mr. Rasajani, you have already gone to the how. It's interesting that you said that the executive and the legislature must collaborate for any ideas that they have to work at all. I mean, have to work within the shortest possible time. For me, I think that borders on the how, which is very important, because, I mean, we can talk about the what. And at the end of the day, if we don't know how we're going to get there, it's a big problem. But I want to look at some of what has been proposed and how realistic they are. The Senate is looking at making transmission of results, which has been very controversial in this last election. Yes. They want it real time, and they want it entrenched in the law. Some people have said, oh, that's good, that leaves INEC in a very, very tight position, etc., etc. That's why it was not stated explicitly. But given our current experience, it does appear that's what the National Assembly wants to look at. There's also the issue of diaspora voting. For you, how big an achievement will that be if we're able to achieve something like diaspora voting as the Senate is looking at it?
Look, if we are all determined and we are serious about improving electoral and governance system in Nigeria, these are not problems. Smaller countries have witnessed diaspora voting of other countries in the US, in the UK, in Europe, and it's not a problem. Why should it be a problem for Nigeria? Look, there are a lot of problems, and that is why I think if we are all serious, we must take this reform very serious. It is because some politicians are determined at all times to rig election, to undermine the electoral process. That is why they are creating this impossibility. It's not a problem. Look, some countries, do you know that you can actually, do your voting and send it by mail? I've witnessed that in Germany. So what is so special about this, if not because people see election as a process of getting in there to loot and still not to do the service? If it is about service, my dear, people should beg you to come and contest. But now you are going to use dirty money, bribe everybody, that you can bribe, get in there. Some people borrow money. Do you know that some people, I relate a lot with the members of the National Assembly. Many of them actually got broke in the previous elections because they borrow money, hoping that they will reap something.
They borrow money to contest election?
They borrow money to contest election. A lot of people, invest, to win election. Wow. Because when they win the election, they believe that they will, of course, recover and in part make more profit. And those who are honest in the National Assembly not to be involved in the extortion during the oversight. You see, many of them are marginalized. Some senators in the past confessed to me how they suffer marginalization because they try to do the right thing during the oversight. So you will not even be told that the group will even go, the committee will go, if you are going to express different opinions there. So we have a system that we have to unbundle it. This democracy we are operating in Nigeria is different from the one we have in Bisset. It's different from the one that we canvass. It's not a democracy of looting and looters or rigging or using dirty money to capture powers for your own self-interest. No, that is not the kind of democracy a lot of people sacrifice their life to have in 1999. So therefore, we have duty and responsibility as patriotic, responsible citizens to always point out these areas so that the system can be actually amended. The diaspora voting is possible. It is possible.
So, Ayo, when you hear some people say those members should carry people along, now you see, they borrow money to contest. So, there you go.
You actually pointed out that we had an interview where carry along has connotative and whatever other meanings, you know. But let me ask Mr. Sanjani this one. Something that's credited to the Chief Press Secretary to the INEC chairman. He was saying something along the line of the lessons that they have learned in INEC, and that's it right there. It says technology can throw up challenges, but by and large, we have learned our lessons from the 2023 general elections. Now, here's where I'm going. We are not transmitting, we're uploading. All we are doing is that we are taking pictures of the polling unit results and uploading same to the portal. Do you agree that, you know, that's exactly the spirit of the Electoral Act, not transmitting, but barely uploading? Or is it, what do you think is happening right there?
You know, my brother, we spent 27 billion naira to invest in technology with view to improve our election and the electoral process in Nigeria. We cannot waste that resources and in the middle of the road abandon what we have invested and what made many Nigerians to believe that this time around things will go very well. And you could see that because of the use of technology, we have minimized these dubious numbers that people will say they have got 2 million, 3 million in some places where actually the registered voters are not more than maybe 700,000, but somebody would declare 1 million plus as a winner. You can see that technology has helped to reduce those ridiculous figures that people are actually escalating. So the need to improve in whatever lapses of using the technology is paramount, is important, and that is the only way to go. We cannot come back to analog voting or electoral process in Nigeria where you give people the opportunity to be thumbprinting and and you have no opportunity to even actually eliminate undervoters or people who are not even registered, in the first place. So we must take advantage of what we have started. Look, Nigerians uploaded and actually congratulated INEC when it conducted a Ekiti and Ocean election. And it was that impressive thing that INEC have done that led to many people to believe in INEC. And even we in civil society, when Nigerians did not want to give INEC a chance, we put our credibility, we put our integrity to convince Nigerians that this time around, INEC had assured Nigerians that they're not going to be game.
Well, Mr. Sanjani...
Some way, somehow, we had recorded...
Yeah, my apologies for butting in. I'm still talking about technology. And when you say we are not going back into the analog, regime, I'm wondering whether or not we have even left that analog regime in the first place completely. Because unless I'm getting something wrong, there's still a place where some things still have to be entered manually. As that statement by the CPS of INEC says, they only upload results that have been handwritten. But do you see a situation where we get to that regime of something that happens in the U.S.? I've seen the collation of the results, especially of the presidential elections in the U.S. You see the numbers rising or falling wherever it is in the different parts of the, and then you see the percentages changing as the results are coming in. And that, I think, is something that a good number of Nigerians would want to see, where it's purely electronic, everything is being entered from wherever. Add that to the fact that not all political parties are empowered to have their representatives at the wards all across the country. Not all of them have even up to 95%. Some have barely 60, 70%, and all of those things. How do those things affect the integrity of the process as far as the electorate or even the political parties themselves are concerned?
This is a process. And what is important is the determination and the sincerity to make progress in this regard. If our government and our politicians are ready, I am telling you, this is not impossible. We will make the necessary progress that we needed in order to restore confidence and hope in the electoral process, and in order to make the electoral process to be transparent and actually enable Nigerians to participate. But as long as there's this predetermined motive that we must make this in do or die, one of the elder and former, leader in this country wrote that, unfortunate, statement that election is do or die, and that sent wrong signal to so many people to think that yes, they have to capture this in, because it is only when they capture this that they can actually steal as much as they want and go to the, the privileges in government. And secondly, some of them will openly tell you that we meet in the court because they know what they have already done. So they can perpetuate the wrong thing, and they will tell the opponent, let's meet in the court, because they are probably ruling, or they are people that have the power at that instance. You can be opposition, you can be majority party, But we have to do a lot of things.
All right.
Whether we like it or not, we need to do political party reform in this country. There's no way we can be having this kind of political parties that they only exist when it is election time, and when it's only going to be doing trading, that they step down for this candidate of this party. Or not. That is not the kind of party we are looking for. We are looking for a party that will be robust, that will be able to bring out policies, issues, and not only during the election, but as we are today.
All right, we thank you very much indeed, and we do hope that we'll keep focus on this and ensure that the right things are done for the next elections to be better, which is what we all want, I reckon. Mr. Awa Musarraf Sinjani is the Executive Director, Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, and also Head, Transparency International Nigeria, also Transition Monitoring Group. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
Now, yesterday, the Commissioner for Information in Kogi State issued a press statement, and that press statement was duly signed. As a matter of fact, the heading was "Gunmen in Military Uniform Attempted to Kill Governor Bello." And then it was a very lengthy one. And then he says that Kogi State Governor Yaya Bello on Sunday allegedly escaped an assassination attempt a few kilometers away from Abuja on his way to an official engagement from Lokoja. The statement also says that, he says, according to the statements, it took the swift intervention of the security personnel attached to the governor to foil the satanic plans of the unknown soldiers, stressing that the attacks were at 3 different points, saying the last barricade being around Kwali, Federal Capital Territory, at about 4:20 p.m. The report of these strange attacks has been properly documented at security offices in the state and the national level for prompt and thorough investigations to avert future occurrences. We are not oblivious of the fact that certain elements are bent on painting Kogi unsafe ahead of the governorship poll slated for November 11, 2023. As an administration, we will spare nothing to ensure our citizens are not subjected to security threats by desperate politicians sponsoring violence and terrorism. That's part of what the statement read, and it was signed by the Kogi State Commissioner for Information, Kingsley Fanwo. So a very lengthy one, as a matter of fact. But not long after that. A few hours after that statement from the Commissioner for Information, Mr. Kingston Farnwell, which was signed by him, the state government is making a U-turn. The governor himself has told journalists there was a misunderstanding. Here's what he said.
At about 1400 hours, we took off from Lokoja coming to Abuja, and the journey was smooth. Just about 1600 hours, my convoy, especially the security, had an encounter with another sister agency, and there was a fracas. Immediately, we waded in, and it was resolved. So thereafter, I began to hear in the social media about assassination attempts. I want to state categorically very clear, dear Nigerians, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, that there was no assassination attempt on me, Yahaya Bello, the executive governor of Kogi State, by the military or by anybody. And I don't condone any act of indiscipline. That fracas to even have happened in the first place. I have called on the Nigerian police, the Nigerian army, the DSS, and all law enforcement agencies that are around me and on the road to investigate it and ensure that whoever is culpable is punished according to the rules and regulations of the various forces or the various services.
Wow. I don't know what to think. Because...
He doesn't know what to think. Okay. Well, I know what to think. I don't know what to say. So.
Oh, dear.
But you let us know what you have to say. I mean, you've heard both sides, and you can tell us what your thoughts are. Please use the handles. I know it's late today. We will not be able to get it. But, you know, think about it. Write your thoughts. Tomorrow, we'll steadily take it on.
Oh, don't worry. Keep your gunpowder dry. Tomorrow, we'll have time to sink our teeth into it all and see.
I can only say thank God everybody is safe.
Yeah.
At least we didn't hear that anybody died. So I can assume, safely assume, that everybody is fine.
But this time they didn't say journalists misquoted anybody.
No.
They didn't blame journalists for purveying fake news.
We read the statement and we put the governor out there. So no more comments.
There's certainly more to this than meets the eye. But don't worry, just send us your thoughts. It's not over. We'll be back here tomorrow. We thank you all for watching. I'm Chamberlain Osop. Goodbye.
Thank you. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
Have a fruitful day. I'm keeping my gunpowder dry. I'm Mario Makinde. Have a wonderful day. Hello, good morning, and welcome to our coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. I'm Olumide Macaulay. Coming up today, Israel claimed bombing of Hamas missile launcher sites near kindergarten, schools, and mosque in Gaza. Leaders of the United States, Canada, France, Germany, and others urge Israel to protect civilians. Plus, doctors at Gaza neonatal intensive care unit warn of huge catastrophe. That and more, all that and more in the course of today's program. And we begin with the strikes against targets in Gaza, including several missile launch sites near schools and a mosque.